What if everything you thought you knew about ancient history was only half the story? Somehow, in the forgotten corners of the Americas, there stand structures so strange, so utterly inexplicable, that they defy everything we assume about the past. These are not just old ruins, they are puzzles carved in stone, mysteries that whisper of civilizations whose knowledge and ambitions might rival or even surpass our own understanding. Today, we're setting out on a journey to uncover 25 of the most bizarre ancient constructions ever discovered across North and South America, each one a testament to human ingenuity, and each one challenging the narratives we've accepted for generations. From the dense jungles of Central America to the sweeping deserts of Peru, from the monumental earthworks of the Mississippi Valley to the impossible precision of Andean stonework, these sites don't just ask questions, they demand we reconsider what ancient people were truly capable of. How did cultures without modern technology move stones that weigh hundreds of tons? Why did they build with such breathtaking accuracy, aligning structures with the stars or designing them to interact with sunlight in ways we can barely replicate today? And perhaps most compelling of all, what happened to these societies, and why were so many of their secrets lost to time? This isn't just a tour through ancient ruins, it's an exploration into the unknown, a chance to walk alongside the architects, dreamers, and innovators of a world long gone but far from forgotten. As we count down these 25 bizarre structures, you'll discover that history is far more mysterious and far more wondrous than you ever imagined. So settle in and open your mind, because by the end of this journey, you may never look at the past the same way again. Our journey begins not in some far-off jungle, but right in the heart of North America, in what is now Illinois, just across the Mississippi River from modern-day St. Louis. Here you would have found Cahokia, a sprawling metropolis that was, for a time, the largest city north of Mexico. At its peak around the year 1050, it was home to as many as 20,000 people, a number that wouldn't be rivaled by any city in the United States until the late 1700s. And the centerpiece of this ancient urban marvel was not a skyscraper or a palace of stone, but something just as impressive, a colossal man-made mountain of earth known as Monk's Mound. Rising 100 feet into the air and covering a base of nearly 14 acres, Monk's Mound is the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in the entire Americas. To put that into perspective, its base is larger than that of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it was built entirely by hand, basketload by basketload of soil, an undertaking that would have required a highly organized society and a staggering amount of labor. The summit offered a commanding view of the entire city, a grand plaza, and more than 100 other smaller mounds, each serving different purposes, from ceremonial platforms to elite residences and burial sites. But Cahokia's sophistication goes far beyond just moving dirt. On the western edge of the city, archaeologists discovered a series of large, circular pits that once held massive wooden posts. This structure, dubbed Woodhenge, functioned as a sophisticated solar calendar. The posts were precisely arranged so that on the equinoxes and solstices, an observer standing at the center would see the sun rise directly in line with specific key posts. This wasn't just for telling time, it was central to their worldview, connecting the cycles of the heavens to the ceremonies and agricultural life of the city. Then, around the year 1400, this vibrant, powerful, and incredibly advanced society simply vanished. The great city was abandoned. The precise reasons remain one of archaeology's most enduring puzzles. Some evidence points towards environmental factors, perhaps deforestation led to catastrophic flooding, or a prolonged drought stressed their resources. There are also signs of social unrest, possibly even invasion from outside groups. What we are left with are these silent, grassy mounds, a testament to a magnificent culture that achieved greatness and then disappeared into the mist of history, leaving behind a mystery as immense as the mounds themselves. From the towering earthen monuments of Cahokia, we now travel to the arid, high desert of northwestern New Mexico, a landscape that holds the secrets of another astonishing civilization. Here, nestled within the stark, beautiful canyon walls of Chaco Canyon, the ancestral Pueblones constructed something that seems almost impossible for its time, a monumental ceremonial and economic center that dominated the region for centuries. The most striking features of this center are the monumental structures known today as great houses, and the greatest of them all is Pueblo Bonito. Imagine a single structure, not made of stone blocks but of thousands of meticulously shaped sandstone bricks rising 4 and 5 stories high. Pueblo Bonito was a massive, D-shaped complex with over 600 rooms and 40 kivas, those circular, subterranean chambers used for religious ceremonies. It wasn't a chaotic village, it was a meticulously planned architectural marvel. The walls were laid out with a precision that rivals modern masonry, with core and veneer construction. A sturdy rubble core faced with carefully selected, flat stones, creating walls so strong they have endured for over 1,000 years. But the sophistication of Chaco goes far beyond just building big. The entire canyon appears to have been engineered as a vast astronomical observatory. Specific walls and windows in Pueblo Bonito and other great houses are aligned to capture the sunlight at precise moments. On the summer solstice, a single dagger of light would pierce a window and strike a specific spiral petroglyph carved on a far cliff face. Other constructions mark the lunar standstill, an 18.6-year cycle that requires generations of precise observation to track. This was a society deeply connected to the cosmos, weaving time and the movements of the heavens into the very fabric of their architecture. Perhaps the most baffling mystery of Chaco is its network of roads. These weren't meandering trails, they were engineered, 30-foot-wide thoroughfares that ran arrow straight for miles, cutting through solid rock and sweeping across the desert floor. They extended over 150 miles in every direction, connecting Chaco to over 200 outlying communities. Yet, these roads seem to defy practical explanation. They often run straight up and down massive cliff faces, making them impractical for trade caravans. This has led many researchers to believe the roads held a primarily spiritual significance, a literal and symbolic pathway connecting the sacred center of the world Chaco Canyon to its far-flung communities. The scale of ambition, the coordination required, and the sheer knowledge embedded in this desert complex stand as a powerful, silent monument to a people whose understanding of their world was far more advanced than we ever knew. Yet the breathtaking scale of Chaco Canyon gives way to an entirely different kind of wonder as we journey east into the lush, rolling hills of Ohio. Here, nestled on a plateau overlooking Brush Creek, lies one of the most enigmatic and visually stunning ancient monuments in the world, the Great Serpent Mound. This is not a city or a ceremonial building, but a massive, awe-inspiring work of earth art. From above, the form is unmistakable. A gigantic serpent, over 1,300 feet long, its body coiling gracefully across the landscape before culminating in a wide, open jaw that seems to be swallowing a large, oval-shaped mound. The sheer size of the effigy is almost impossible to grasp from the ground. To walk its entire length is to take a journey alongside an ancient, slumbering giant. The builders carefully piled stones and layers of clay and soil to create the serpent's undulating form, which rises several feet high in places. The attention to detail is remarkable, from the subtle curves of its body to the tightly wound coils at its center. This was not a practical fortification or a dwelling. It was a profound symbolic expression, a sacred glyph written on the earth itself on a scale meant to be seen from the heavens. One of the most compelling theories about the Serpent Mound involves its precise alignment with celestial events. The head and the oval mound are aligned almost perfectly to the point of sunset on the summer solstice. Furthermore, the coils of the serpent's body may align with the solstice sunrises and the equinox sunsets. This suggests its creators were not just artists, but sophisticated astronomers who used the landscape to track the passage of time and the changing of the seasons, embedding their understanding of the cosmos into the very shape of their world. For over a century, a major debate has swirled around the question of who built this magnificent earthwork and when. For a long time, it was attributed to the Adena culture, which flourished in the region from around 1000 BC to 200 CE. However, more recent carbon dating of charcoal samples from the mound suggests a later construction, possibly by the Fourth Ancient Culture around 1070 CE. This ongoing debate means the Serpent Mound could be nearly 2,000 years old, or it could be a more recent, yet no less incredible, achievement. This uncertainty only deepens the mystery, separating the monument's powerful presence from a clear historical context. Regardless of its exact origins, the Serpent Mound held and continues to hold deep cultural and spiritual significance. For the indigenous peoples of the region, serpents were powerful symbols of the underworld, of water, and of fertility. The act of creating such an immense effigy was likely a way to connect with these spiritual forces, to tell a creation story, or to mark a place of immense ritual importance. It stands today as a silent, powerful testament to the spiritual and artistic vision of the ancient Native American cultures of the Ohio Valley, a reminder that their legacy is not just in artifacts, but in the shape of the land they so reverently shaped. But if the Great Serpent Mound represents a symbolic reshaping of the Earth, our next site reveals a project of such staggering, ambitious scale that it redefines our entire understanding of early North American societies. Travel with us now to the humid floodplains of northeastern Louisiana, to a place known today as Poverty Point. This is not a name that speaks of grandeur, but it is a profound misnomer, for here, over 3,700 years ago, a people whose name we do not know embarked on a building project so immense it would have been extraordinary in any era. To put that date in perspective, this complex was already ancient by the time the pyramids of Giza were being built in Egypt. The centerpiece of Poverty Point is not one single mound, but an entire engineered landscape. The most prominent feature is a colossal, bird-shaped earthwork known as Mound A, soaring 72 feet high and stretching over 700 feet in length. This is the second largest earthen mound by volume in all of North America. From above, its form is unmistakably that of a bird in flight, a symbol that would echo through later Native American cultures, representing a connection between the earthly and the spiritual realms. But Mound A is just one part of an intricate design. Encircling a large central plaza are 6 concentric C-shaped ridges, standing as high as 6 feet tall and spaced apart by broad, flat aisles. These ridges weren't natural formations, they were meticulously constructed, forming a massive semicircle that opens toward the nearby Bayou Macan. Think of these ridges not as walls, but as the foundations for a bustling residential complex where homes and communal structures would have stood, all oriented toward the shared ceremonial space in the plaza below. The engineering behind this complex is what truly baffles archaeologists. This society was not agricultural, they were hunter-gatherers. According to traditional models of history, monumental architecture requires a large, sedentary population supported by farming to provide the surplus labor and food needed for such projects. Poverty Point shatters that model entirely. The builders moved an almost unimaginable volume of earth. Estimates suggest over 900,000 cubic yards of soil was hand-dug and basket carried into place. That's enough dirt to fill over 60,000 modern dump trucks, all moved without the wheel, without draft animals, and without any metal tools. The coordination and social organization required for this feat are mind-boggling. It speaks to a powerful, unifying belief system and a highly sophisticated leadership structure that could mobilize a vast community toward a single, incredible goal. The mysteries only deepen when we consider the materials found here. The people of Poverty Point were part of a vast trading network that spanned thousands of miles. Archaeologists have uncovered raw materials and finished goods made from stones that originate in the Great Lakes region, the Appalachian Mountains, and even as far away as the Ozarks. They were importing high-quality chert for toolmaking, slate from the Carolinas, and distinctive soapstone from Georgia. This wasn't simple barter. It was a complex, long-distance exchange system managed by a culture we assumed was simply living off the land. The very existence of Poverty Point forces us to confront a humbling truth. Our ancient ancestors were far more capable, interconnected, and ambitious than we often give them credit for. They built a monumental capital that stood for centuries as a testament to collective will, a place where ceremony, community, and a profound connection to the landscape converged in a way we are only just beginning to comprehend. Yet the vast, open trading networks of Poverty Point could not be more different from our next destination, a place of astonishing seclusion and vertical ingenuity. We now travel to the high desert plateau of southwestern Colorado, a land of deep canyons and towering sandstone cliffs. Here, around the year 1200, the ancestral Puebloans made a dramatic and breathtaking architectural choice. They moved off the exposed mesotops and began constructing their homes in the most improbable of places, sheltered alcoves hundreds of feet up sheer cliff faces. This is Mesa Verde, and its cliff palace is perhaps the most awe-inspiring sight in all of North American archaeology. Imagine standing on the canyon floor and gazing up at a vast natural sandstone amphitheater. And within that curved recess clinging to the cliff wall is an entire miniature city. Cliff Palace is not a simple cave dwelling. It is a sophisticated, multi-story complex of over 150 rooms and 75 kivas, built from sandstone blocks, wooden beams, and mortar. Towers rise several stories high, and rooms are stacked precariously upon one another, connected by a labyrinth of narrow passageways and sturdy wooden ladders. The scale and precision of the construction in such a difficult-to-access location is simply staggering. It was a communal dwelling, a fortress, and a ceremonial center, all fused into one. Living on a cliff face presented immense challenges, chief among them being the procurement of water. The ancestral Puebloans of Mesa Verde responded with brilliant engineering. They constructed intricate systems to channel every precious drop of rainfall. They built small dams in the alcoves above their dwellings to capture water seeping through the sandstone. They carved channels and diverters into the cliff faces to direct water into collection basins, and they lined their courtyards with plaster to create reservoirs for storage. This mastery of hydrology in an arid environment was absolutely essential for supporting a population of over 100 people at Cliff Palace alone. This shift from open mesas to fortified cliff dwellings was likely driven by a combination of factors. A prolonged period of drought and resource scarcity may have sparked competition and conflict between different groups, making the easily defensible cliff alcoves a sanctuary. The overhanging rock provided natural shelter from the elements, cooling in the summer and insulating against winter snows. Yet, this defensive seclusion also came with a cost, potentially limiting access to farmland and trading routes. Then, by the end of the 13th century, barely 100 years after these magnificent cliff dwellings were constructed, they were completely abandoned. The people left behind their homes, their pottery, and their tools. The current evidence points toward a confluence of pressures, a devastating 23-year-long mega-drought that crippled agriculture, possible resource depletion from centuries of living in the area, and perhaps social or religious upheaval. They migrated south into what is now Arizona and New Mexico, eventually becoming the ancestors of modern Pueblo peoples. Their departure left behind a silent stone city, a haunting and beautiful monument to human resilience and adaptation in the face of a changing world. Yet the abrupt and mysterious abandonment of Mesa Verde offers a stark contrast to the long, deliberate, and monumental history of our next site. Far to the south, in the rugged highlands of what is now Oaxaca, Mexico, an entire mountaintop was literally reshaped to serve as the stage for one of Mesoamerica's earliest and most influential cities. This is Monte Albán, the magnificent capital of the Zapotec civilization, a city that flourished for over 1,000 years and left behind architectural and artistic wonders that continue to perplex and amaze. The very location of Monte Albán is a statement of power and intention. The Zapotecs did not choose a convenient valley or a gentle hillside. They selected a group of 3 towering hills, leveling their summits to create a vast, artificial plateau over 1,300 feet above the surrounding valley floor. This was a deliberate act of separation, creating a sacred and administrative center literally above the everyday world. The scale of this initial earth-moving is almost impossible to conceive, and it set the stage for a city that would become the political and economic heart of the region for centuries. One of the earliest and most bizarre features discovered at Monte Albán is a gallery of stones known as the danzantes, or the dancers. These are over 300 large stone slabs carved with figures in strange, contorted, and often unsettling poses. Their limbs are splayed, their bodies bend in unnatural ways, and some appear to display graphic depictions of ritual bloodletting or even castration. For a long time, early archaeologists thought these figures were depicting dancers, hence the name. However, the modern consensus is far more grim and politically charged. These are not dancers, they are most likely representations of tortured, sacrificed war captives, often from rival kingdoms. They are permanent war monuments, a stark and very public display of Zapotec military might designed to intimidate both visitors and subject populations. The individuality of the faces suggests they may depict specific, high-value prisoners, their contorted bodies serving as a lasting warning against defiance. Beyond its messages of power, Monte Albán reveals a society with incredibly advanced scientific understanding. At the city's center stands a unique, arrowhead-shaped structure known as Building J. Its peculiar 45-degree angle sets it apart from the cardinal alignment of every other main building in the Grand Plaza. For decades, its purpose was a complete mystery until astronomers realized its design was anything but arbitrary. The narrow hallway running through the center of Building J is perfectly aligned to point toward the star Capella, as it would have set on the horizon around the year 275 BC. Other features of the building align with significant celestial events. This was a sophisticated astronomical observatory, a concrete tool for a priesthood that meticulously tracked the heavens to create precise calendars, dictate the timing of religious ceremonies, and legitimize their rule by demonstrating a tangible connection to the cosmos. The city's layout itself is a masterclass in sophisticated urban planning. The Grand Plaza is an immense, rectangular space flanked by massive platform pyramids, palaces, and temples, all arranged with precise geometric intention. A complex system of underground drain pipes and channels was engineered to manage water runoff. Residential terraces cascaded down the hillsides, housing a population that may have reached 20,000 people at its peak. This was not a haphazard collection of buildings. It was a meticulously designed metropolis, a testament to the Zapotecs' unparalleled skills in engineering, logistics, and social organization. Perhaps the most captivating mystery of Monte Albán was uncovered in the 1930s, not in the city's heyday, but from its later reuse by a completely different culture. Archaeologist Alfonso Cosso discovered a sealed tomb, designated Tomb 7, which had escaped the attention of looters for centuries. When opened, it revealed not a Zapotec burial, but the richest collection of Mesoamerican gold and artifacts ever found in a scientific excavation. The tomb had been repurposed by the Mixtecs, who moved into the already ancient city centuries after the Zapotecs had abandoned it around 800 CE. The Mixtec elite buried one of their own nobles within, accompanied by an unimaginable treasure of exquisite gold jewelry, elaborately carved bones, pearls, amber, and turquoise mosaic work. The discovery was a time capsule from a master artisan culture, but it also poses a poignant question. Why did the Zapotecs, after over a millennium of dominance, eventually leave their magnificent mountain capital? The reasons remain unclear, possibly involving internal strife, external pressure, or the gradual shift of economic power to newer cities in the valley below. Their departure left a void that others would fill, but the monumental legacy of their engineered mountaintop endures as one of the great intellectual and architectural achievements of the ancient Americas. Yet the mountaintop grandeur of Monte Albán gives way to a sight of an entirely different character as we venture into the steamy, lush lowlands of Veracruz, Mexico. Here, nestled in a green valley where the air is thick with humidity, lie the ruins of El Tajín, a city that feels like it was dreamed into existence by an architect with a singular, brilliant vision. While other Mesoamerican sites impress with their scale or age, El Tajín captivates with its utterly unique and intricate aesthetic, a style so distinctive it stands alone in the ancient world. The city's undisputed masterpiece is the Pyramid of the Niches. At first glance, it seems like an optical illusion. This six-tiered structure is not a smooth-sided pyramid. Its entire surface is covered in a grid of precisely carved, deep, square recesses, 365 of them to be exact. One niche for every day of the solar year, but the genius of this design is not just symbolic, it is profoundly functional. The niches create a dramatic play of light and shadow across the pyramid's face. As the sun moves across the sky, shadows shift and dance, slowly filling the niches from top to bottom or side to side, turning the entire building into a massive, ticking celestial clock. This was architecture that was alive, interacting directly with the sun to mark the passage of time itself. And originally, each niche was painted a dark red and might have held a small, brightly painted idol or offering, making the pyramid a dazzling, polychrome mosaic of color and sacred art. But the mysteries of El Tajín extend far beyond this one famous structure. The city boasts at least 17 ball courts, more than any other site in Mesoamerica, highlighting the central role of the ritual ball game in their culture. And it is within the sculpted panels of the South Ball Court that we confront the most dramatic and enigmatic scenes. These intricately carved panels depict the ball game not as a sport, but as a matter of life and death. One panel shows a player, having just lost the game, kneeling before a skeletal death god. Another player, perhaps his victorious opponent, stands over him holding a ritual knife. Most chilling of all is the depiction of a serpent, coiled and vibrant, vine-like, sprouting from the neck of the sacrificed player, a potent symbol of renewal and the cycle of life emerging from death. These panels provide the most vivid archaeological evidence we have linking the Mesoamerican ball game to the practice of human sacrifice, suggesting that for the players at El Tajín, the stakes were the highest imaginable. The identity of the people who built this magnificent city is one of its greatest lingering puzzles. When the Aztecs discovered the already abandoned ruins centuries later, they named it El Tajín, which means of thunder or the lightning bolt, perhaps associating the site with the storm god they revered. The Totonac people who live in the region today have long claimed El Tajín as their ancestral capital, and while there is strong ethno-historical evidence to support this, the exact origins of its founders remain shrouded in mystery. The city's unique artistic style, its sudden emergence as a major power around the 1st century CE, and its decline and abandonment around the 12th century all contribute to an aura of enigma. It was a brilliant, flowering civilization that developed in relative isolation, creating an architectural and artistic language unlike any other, only to vanish back into the jungle, leaving behind its breathtaking, shadow-drenched pyramids as a silent echo of its sophisticated and complex world. Leaving behind the intricate niches of El Tajín, we journey next to the very epicenter of Mesoamerican mystery, to a city so grand that even the mighty Aztecs, who discovered its empty streets centuries later, believed it must have been built by gods. This is Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, and standing at its heart is a monument of such raw, overwhelming scale that it commands reverence even in its ruined state, the Pyramid of the Sun. Rising over 200 feet above the valley floor, with a base that stretches over 730 feet on each side, the Pyramid of the Sun is a true colossus. It is the third largest pyramid in the entire world by volume, an artificial mountain composed of nearly 3 million tons of stone, brick, and rubble. To stand before it is to feel truly small, dwarfed by the ambition of its unknown builders. The entire structure was originally covered in a thick layer of smooth, brightly painted stucco, likely adorned with vivid murals, making it a dazzling beacon of color and power that could be seen for miles across the valley. But the true genius of its construction lies not just in its size, but in its profound connection to the cosmos. The entire city of Teotihuacan is a meticulously planned celestial map, and the Pyramid of the Sun is its central anchor. The western face of the pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to set directly with the sun on two specific days each year, August 12th and April 29th. These dates mark the beginning and the end of the Maya agricultural cycle, a calendar that may have also been used at Teotihuacan, framing the growing season. Furthermore, the central avenue of the city, the Street of the Dead, is aligned 15.5 degrees east of true north, an orientation that directly tracks the Pleiades star cluster as it sets on the horizon. This was not a city laid out for convenience. It was a sacred landscape, an earthly mirror of the heavens, and the Pyramid of the Sun was its most powerful terrestrial star. Perhaps the most astonishing discovery about this ancient giant was made entirely by accident. In the 1970s, after a period of heavy rain, a massive sinkhole opened up at the foot of the pyramid, revealing a hidden secret that had been buried for nearly 2 millennia. A long, narrow tunnel leading straight into the heart of the monument, deep beneath its core. This was not a natural fissure, it was a meticulously engineered passageway carved directly from the bedrock. The tunnel stretches over 300 feet into the damp, absolute darkness, terminating in a clover-leaf-shaped chamber that sits directly below the center of the pyramid. Archaeologists believe this chamber and tunnel system held immense ritual significance, potentially representing a sacred conduit to the underworld. It's possible that this space was used for initiation rites, deep meditative rituals, or as the final resting place for a foundational offering or a powerful ruler, though its exact purpose remains one of Teotihuacan's most tantalizing secrets. And that leads us to the greatest and most enduring mystery of all. Who built this? The Aztecs gave the city and its pyramids their names, but they had no idea who its original architects were. Despite decades of intensive archaeological work, the true identity of Teotihuacan's builders remains utterly unknown. There is no Rosetta Stone for this city, no convenient royal tombs filled with named rulers, no definitive written records that spell out its history. The city seems to have been a vast, multi-ethnic metropolis, a kind of ancient New York City, attracting people from all over Mesoamerica, including Maya, Zapotecs, and others. It was a place of immense power and influence whose artistic and architectural styles would be imitated for centuries, yet its own founding story, its language, and the names of its kings have vanished into thin air. The Pyramid of the Sun, therefore, stands not just as a monument to human achievement, but as a silent, colossal question mark, a powerful reminder that some of history's greatest architects chose to let their work, and not their names, speak for them across the ages. Just a short walk from the immense shadow of the Pyramid of the Sun lies another, far more enigmatic center of power within Teotihuacan, the Ciudadela, or the Citadel. This vast, sunken plaza is so colossal it could easily hold over 100,000 people, and its construction required a feat of engineering as ambitious as the Great Pyramids themselves. The entire complex is surrounded by massive 15-foot-high platforms topped with temples, creating a perfectly rectangular, fortress-like enclosure that feels both immense and intimate, a grand stage designed for spectacle and ceremony. But the true wonder and the source of its deepest mysteries is the structure that dominates its eastern side, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. This pyramid, while smaller than its famous neighbors, is arguably the most intricate and symbolically charged building in the entire city. Its facade is a breathtaking masterpiece of stonework, adorned with a series of stunning, high-relief sculptures that undulate across its tiers. They depict not one, but two powerful deities in a rhythmic, alternating dance. We see the elegant, plumed head of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, god of wind, wisdom, and life, and right beside it emerges the goggle-eyed, fearsome visage of Tlaloc, the ancient storm god, controller of life giving rain and destructive floods. This pairing is profoundly significant. It represents the fundamental dual forces of existence for the people of Teotihuacan. The feathered serpent symbolizing the sacred breath of life and the heavens, and the storm god representing the earthly and often violent power of water necessary for survival in Mesoamerica. The entire pyramid was once painted in brilliant polychrome, making this divine duality a vibrant, unforgettable sight for any pilgrim entering the plaza. For a long time, the temple was admired for its artistry alone. Then, in the 1980s, archaeologists made a discovery that shook the foundation of Teotihuacan scholarship and revealed a far darker aspect of the city's ritual life. As they excavated around the base of the pyramid, they uncovered the remains of over 200 individuals, all interred as offerings during the structure's construction. These were not simple burials, they were mass sacrificial graves arranged with precise, symbolic intention. Some groups were found with their hands tied behind their backs, accompanied by lavish offerings of obsidian blades and necklaces made from strung human jaws. The most chilling graves belonged to warriors, adorned with elaborate shell pectorals and surrounded by the skeletons of their complete outfits, complete with shields and atlatls. The arrangement of these sacrifices was anything but random. They were placed in specific positions around the pyramid's perimeter, mirroring the carvings above. The numbers were symbolic: 18 burials on the front platform, 20 on each side, suggesting a deep connection to the Mesoamerican calendar. This was not an act of mere brutality. It was a state-sanctioned, sacred act on an industrial scale, designed to infuse the very foundations of the temple with spiritual power. The life force of these victims, likely prisoners of war from rival states, was considered the ultimate offering to appease the gods and ensure the stability and prosperity of Teotihuacan itself. But the story of the Feathered Serpent Pyramid holds one final, violent twist. Sometime in the 3rd or 4th century, near the peak of the city's power, a momentous and furious event occurred. The city's own people systematically and deliberately destroyed the sculpted facade of the temple. Using tools, they hacked away at the magnificent stone serpents' heads, decapitating and defacing them before then building a larger, plain pyramid directly over the top, completely entombing the original artwork and its sacrificial victims. This was not an attack by an outside enemy, it was an act of internal iconoclasm, a deliberate erasure of history. The most prevailing theory suggests a radical political or religious revolution. Perhaps a powerful cult centered on the feathered serpent god was overthrown by a rival faction. The new rulers, seeking to consolidate their power, literally buried the old order, silencing its gods and rewriting the city's sacred narrative by concealing it within a new, anonymous shell. This act of architectural damnatio memoriae speaks to a period of intense turmoil hidden beneath the seemingly placid and orderly surface of Teotihuacan, proving that even the greatest and most powerful of ancient cities were not immune to the convulsions of political upheaval. Leaving behind the vast ceremonial plazas of Teotihuacan, we travel further south and forward in time to a period of great upheaval and remarkable cultural fusion. As Teotihuacan's power waned around the 7th century, a political and economic vacuum spread across Mesoamerica, giving rise to a new era archaeologists call the Epiclassic. It was in this volatile and dynamic climate that a new power emerged, strategically positioned on a series of fortified hilltops in what is now the state of Morelos. This is Xochicalco, the place of the House of Flowers, and it became a brilliant beacon of knowledge, trade, and astronomical precision during a time of profound transition. Xochicalco was far more than just a fortress city. It was a prestigious intellectual hub and a true multicultural crossroads. Art and inscriptions found at the site show clear influences from all the major civilizations of the era. You can see the unmistakable artistic styles of the Teotihuacanos, the Maya, the Zapotecs from Monte Albon, and even cultures from the Gulf Coast. This suggests it was a place where elite scribes, astronomers, and artisans from different regions gathered, shared ideas, and created a new hybrid culture. It was a Mesoamerican melting pot, and its most stunning achievement reflects this synthesis of knowledge. A unique and sophisticated underground astronomical observatory that stands alone in its design and function. Carved directly into the living bedrock of the hilltop is a complex system of underground chambers and corridors. The most significant of these is a room with a massive, cylindrical shaft drilled straight up through the ceiling to the open sky. This is not a simple hole for light or air. It is a precision-engineered instrument for tracking the sun. The shaft is 16 feet long and angles at a specific calculated degree. For most of the year, sunlight streams down this tube, casting a glowing circle of light onto the floor of the darkened chamber. But on 2 specific days of the year, the days of the zenith passage when the sun is directly overhead at noon, something magical happens. The beam of light transforms, projecting a perfectly focused, intense ellipse that illuminates the entire chamber with a brilliant, almost supernatural light. The ancient astronomers didn't stop there. They marked this profound celestial event with intentional artistry. On the floor of the chamber, directly beneath the shaft, they placed a carved stone marker. When the zenith sun's light hits this spot with perfect alignment, it signifies a moment of supreme balance, a day with no shadows, a date critical for calibrating their highly accurate 365-day solar calendar. The ability to pinpoint this event required generations of meticulous observation and a deep mathematical understanding of the solar cycle. This underground room was their laboratory, their sacred space, and their precision timekeeping device all rolled into one. This astronomical prowess is echoed across the entire site, most famously on the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. This structure is covered in exquisitely carved reliefs that depict elegant, undulating feathered serpents, within whose coils sit cross-legged, richly adorned figures. These are believed to be powerful priests or perhaps even astronomer kings, depicted in the act of conducting celestial observations or important calendar rituals. The carvings also include glyphs representing the Maya day sign, Ahau, and a prominent fire serpent, further emphasizing the site's role as a gathering place for different cultural traditions, all united by a shared fascination with the heavens. The story of Xochicalco is one of brilliant adaptation. In a world unraveling after the collapse of a superpower, its people did not retreat, they innovated. They built a fortified citadel to protect their newfound knowledge and wealth, and they created a center of learning that drew from the best ideas across the region. Their underground observatory is a timeless monument to human curiosity, a testament to the universal drive to understand our place in the cosmos. It represents a moment in time when the fading light of one great civilization helped illuminate the rise of another, proving that even in periods of great uncertainty, the pursuit of knowledge can be the most powerful fortress of all. Yet the intellectual zenith of Xochicalco, born from the ashes of Teotihuacan's decline, points toward a new kind of power rising in the region, one that would combine military might with profound spiritual authority. Our journey now takes us further north to the arid highlands of central Mexico and the legendary capital of a people whose name would become synonymous with art, warfare, and a cultural legacy that would echo for centuries, the Toltecs and their magnificent capital city of Cholula. Dominating the center of Cholula is a great ceremonial plaza, and at its heart stands Pyramid B. While its scale may not rival the colossal pyramids of Teotihuacan, it holds a secret far more dramatic and enigmatic. Crowning its summit are four massive monolithic pillars, each carved in the form of a stoic, imposing warrior. These are the famous Atlantean figures, and to stand before them is an experience that blends awe with a deep, unsettling mystery. Each figure stands an astonishing 15 feet tall, hewn from solid basalt, a notoriously difficult stone to work with. They are depicted in full ceremonial battle regalia, a pillbox-style helmet, a butterfly-shaped pectoral covering the chest, and in one hand they clutch a bundle of darts, while the other holds a weapon called an atlatl, a spear thrower that gave Toltec warriors a terrifying advantage on the battlefield. But these are not merely giant statues of soldiers. They are richly layered with cosmic symbolism. Each warrior functions as a structural column, originally supporting the roof of a grand temple that stood atop the pyramid. More importantly, they are believed to be a representation of Quetzalcoatl in his aspect as Teotihuacan, a name meaning Lord of the House of Dawn. This is the feathered serpent transformed into the morning star, the planet Venus, which was seen across Mesoamerica as a potent and often dangerous celestial force associated with war and conflict. The figures, therefore, are not just gods, they are divine celestial beings frozen in stone, eternally watching over the city as the dawn breaks, embodying the Toltec ideal of the holy warrior. The architectural and artistic style of Cholula tells a fascinating story of influence and inheritance. The city's layout, with its colonnaded halls and sprawling ceremonial plazas, shows a clear debt to the grand design of Teotihuacan. Yet, the artistry is entirely new and distinct. The walls of Pyramid B itself are adorned with vivid reliefs showing processions of jaguars and coyotes, eagles devouring human hearts, and most famously, panels depicting prowling jaguars and scenes of sacrifice. This is a much more militaristic and stark aesthetic than what came before, reflecting a society where a powerful warrior class had risen to prominence, and where themes of sacrifice and military power were central to state ideology. For centuries, Cholula flourished as the paramount city of its age, a center of vast trade networks renowned for its master craftsmen, particularly its obsidian workers and skilled potters. Then, around the middle of the 12th century, this powerful capital met a sudden and violent end. Archaeological evidence paints a grim picture of the city's final days. The great ceremonial center was systematically burned. The majestic Atlantean figures were deliberately toppled from their posts on the pyramid summit, and the temple they supported was destroyed. This was not a random act of violence. It was a calculated, ritualized destruction, likely carried out by invading nomadic groups from the north, possibly the ancestors of the Mexica, whom we know today as the Aztecs. The city was sacked and abandoned, its political power shattered almost overnight. Yet, the physical destruction of Cholula could not erase its cultural memory. In fact, its legend only grew. Centuries later, the Aztecs, who built their empire on these very ruins, looked upon Cholula with a kind of mystical reverence. They considered the Toltecs the ultimate exemplars of civilization, the greatest artists, the wisest scribes, the most skilled craftsmen. The word Toltec itself came to mean artisan or wise man in the Aztec language. Aztec rulers actively claimed descent from Toltec nobility to legitimize their own right to rule, weaving Cholula's legacy directly into the foundation of their own imperial identity. This creates a profound historical irony. The Aztecs, who likely played a role in Cholula's destruction, became the primary curators of its myth. They preserved and amplified the stories of its splendor, of its wise ruler Topiltzin-Quetzalcoatl, and of its artistic perfection. The massive Atlantean figures, lying broken on the ground for centuries, thus became more than just pillars. They became stone symbols of a lost golden age, a template for power and civilization that every subsequent culture in Mesoamerica would strive to emulate, proving that a city's true influence can long outlive its stones. Yet the legacy of the Toltecs, preserved and revered by later cultures, finds one of its most spectacular expressions far to the east, in the limestone plains of the Yucatan Peninsula. Here, the Maya built upon and transformed the ideas they inherited, creating a city that would become one of the most iconic and enigmatic sites in the entire world, Chichen Itza. And at the very heart of this great city stands a pyramid so precise, so deeply encoded with meaning, that it functions as a towering stone testament to the Mayas' extraordinary understanding of the universe. El Castillo, the castle. Rising 98 feet above the Great North Platform, El Castillo is a masterpiece of architectural and astronomical engineering. Its 4 sides each have 91 steps. When you add the single top platform as the final step, the total is 365, one for each day of the solar year. This is not a coincidence, it is a fundamental design principle. Each of the pyramid's 9 terraced levels is divided by a staircase, creating 18 sections, which correspond to the 18 months of 20 days each in the Maya solar calendar. The pyramid itself is a physical, climbable calendar, a monumental representation of the very cycles of time that governed Maya life, agriculture, and ceremony. But the genius of El Castillo is not confined to its static form. Twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun works a kind of magic upon the northern staircase. The angle of the pyramid's corners casts a series of triangular shadows down the balustrade. These interlocking shadows connect with the giant stone serpent heads at the base, creating the breathtaking illusion of a massive, undulating serpent slithering down from the heavens to the earth. This phenomenon is a representation of Kukulkan, the Maya feathered serpent deity of creation and rebirth, descending to visit his people. It is a stunning convergence of architecture, astronomy, and theology, a public spectacle that would have reaffirmed the power and divine connection of the city's rulers to every witness. Today, thousands still gather to witness this event, a testament to its enduring power. The wonders of this structure extend beyond the visual to the auditory. Stand at the base of the grand staircase and clap your hands once. The sound doesn't just echo, it returns transformed. The precise acoustics of the stairwell, with its unique pattern of treads and risers, filter the sound and send back a sharp, chirping echo that bears an uncanny resemblance to the primary call of the sacred Quetzal bird. In Maya culture, the Quetzal was deeply associated with the feathered serpent god Kukulkan and was considered a messenger between the gods and humanity. This acoustic feature was almost certainly an intentional design, another layer of sacred symbolism built into the very stone, allowing a simple human action to summon the voice of the divine. Yet for all its celestial glory, Chichen Itza also held a profound and somber connection to the underworld, represented by the great natural well or cenote that gave the city its name, at the mouth of the well of the Itza people. This was no ordinary water source, it was the sacred cenote, a vast, deep sinkhole with steep limestone walls that was believed to be a portal to the realm of the rain god, Chaco. During periods of drought or crisis, the Maya would perform elaborate ceremonies here to petition the gods for rain and favor. These rituals involved offerings of immense value, including exquisite gold artifacts, intricately carved jade, polished obsidian mirrors, and copal incense. But the most powerful offering, according to archaeological dredging and historical accounts, was human life. The murky depths of the cenote have yielded the remains of scores of individuals, predominantly men and young children. The evidence suggests many were thrown into the water alive, perhaps accompanied by ritual music and chanting from priests gathered on the cliffs above. The sacrifice was not seen as a mere death, but as a direct communication with the gods. The victim became a messenger, carrying the prayers of the people down into the watery abode of chalk. This stark duality, the pyramid reaching for the heavens and the cenote plunging into the underworld, perfectly encapsulates the Maya worldview, a complex balance between breathtaking intellectual achievement and the stark realities of their faith, where the favor of the gods was the ultimate currency for survival in a challenging world. Yet the grand spectacle of El Castillo and the somber depths of the sacred cenote represent only one facet of the intellectual powerhouse that was Chichen Itza. A short walk from the main plaza stands a structure so radically different in design it seems to belong to another world entirely. This is El Caracol, the snail, named for the spiral staircase found within its central tower. With its unique circular form and peculiar domed roof, this building looks less like a traditional Maya pyramid and more like a modern astronomical observatory, and that is precisely what it was. El Caracol is a breathtakingly sophisticated instrument of stone, a testament to the Mayas' obsession with tracking the complex dance of the heavens. The entire structure is a multi-layered puzzle of precise alignments. Its main platform is aligned with the cardinal directions, but the circular tower above is deliberately skewed, its windows and sightlines pointing toward key astronomical events on the horizon. The most significant of these alignments involves the planet Venus, which held immense importance in Maya cosmology as the companion to their sun god and a deity associated with both war and renewal. The sightlines from the upper windows of El Caracol are precisely oriented to track the extreme northern and southern points of Venus's setting position on the horizon over its 584-day cycle. This allowed Maya astronomer priests to predict its appearances as the morning star and the evening star with incredible accuracy, but their observations went far beyond a single planet. The windows and apertures of the observatory also captured the setting sun on the spring and autumn equinoxes, and other alignments tracked the movements of the moon, the sun, and even specific stars like the Pleiades cluster, which was associated with the timing of the agricultural cycle and the onset of the rainy season. This was not casual stargazing, it was a rigorous scientific endeavor. The Maya used these precise celestial observations to calibrate their multiple interlocking calendars. Their incredibly complex long-count calendar, their solar Hob calendar, and their sacred Tzolk'in calendar all had to be synchronized, and the data gathered from El Caracol was essential for making those adjustments. This ensured that their religious ceremonies, agricultural practices, and even the timing of warfare were all conducted in perfect harmony with the cosmos as they understood it. The very design of the building reveals the intellectual leap required for this work. The Maya, like most Mesoamerican cultures, almost exclusively built with right angles and rectangular forms. Constructing a stable, multi-story circular tower on top of a square platform was an enormous architectural challenge that required advanced engineering and a complete departure from tradition. This radical shift in form followed function. A circular tower provided a 360-degree view of the horizon and allowed for the precise placement of the narrow observation slits that served as their scientific instruments. El Caracol, therefore, stands as a powerful, stone-clad argument against the outdated idea of ancient cultures being purely superstitious. This was a center of hard science, a place where meticulous, long-term observation led to a profound understanding of cyclical time, cementing the Mayas' legacy as one of the history's most brilliant astronomical civilizations. Yet the celestial precision of Chichen Itza's observatory represents just one regional expression of Maya genius. As we journey further south into the Puc Hills of the Yucatan, we encounter a city that perfected an entirely different, yet equally breathtaking architectural style. This is Uxmal, and its crown jewel is a building so long, so ornate, and so perfectly engineered that it stands as arguably the most magnificent and harmonious structure in the entire ancient Maya world, the governor's palace. Stretching for an astonishing 320 feet along the top of a massive 40-foot-high artificial platform, the palace's facade is the longest in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. Its sheer scale is humbling, but it is the intricate detail that truly captivates. The entire front is a masterpiece of the Puuc style, characterized by incredibly refined stonework and a unique two-part design. The lower section is perfectly plain, a smooth, unadorned wall that emphasizes the building's clean, geometric power. The upper section, in stark contrast, is a riot of meticulously carved stone mosaic, a complex tapestry of geometric patterns and symbolic figures that seems to shimmer and dance in the strong Yucatecan sun. This mosaic is far more than just decoration. It is a sacred text written in stone. Weaving through the intricate latticework and stepped frets are hundreds of repeated masks, each one depicting the long-nosed face of Chac, the powerful god of rain. In a region without rivers, where survival depended entirely on seasonal rainfall and the water collected in cenotes, Chac was the most vital deity in the Maya pantheon. By covering the palace in his image, the rulers of Uxmal were making a profound statement. They were not just showcasing their wealth and power, they were visually declaring their divine mandate to intercede with the god who controlled life itself. They were the guarantors of rain, fertility, and prosperity, and this building was the stone proof of that covenant. The sophistication of the governor's palace extends far beyond its visual symbolism into the realm of precise astronomical alignment. The entire building is oriented along a unique axis, skewed significantly from the north-south alignment of most other structures at Uxmal. For a long time, this odd orientation puzzled archaeologists. The mystery was solved when researchers discovered that the central doorway of the palace is aligned perfectly with the southernmost extreme rise of the planet Venus over a nearby pyramid structure. Venus, as the twin of the sun and a god of war and renewal, was a central figure in Maya cosmology. This alignment would have allowed an observer standing in the central doorway to watch Venus make its first appearance in the pre-dawn sky at this specific, ritually significant point in its cycle, effectively turning the entire palace into a giant viewing platform for a sacred celestial event. This connection to Venus is further reinforced by another stunning feature: the intricately carved, double-headed jaguar throne that sits directly before the central entrance. The jaguar, a symbol of royal power and the underworld, is depicted with a Venus glyph emblazoned on its body, creating a powerful nexus of celestial and earthly authority right at the ruler's doorstep. The entire complex, from its staggering length to its countless chalk masks to its precise orientation, functions as a single, unified instrument of power. It merges architectural grandeur with hydrological necessity, celestial cycles with political legitimacy, creating a monument that is as intellectually profound as it is physically beautiful. It represents the Puuc style at its absolute zenith, a testament to a society that reached a level of artistic refinement and engineering wisdom that has rarely been matched. But if the governor's palace at Uxmal represents the zenith of Maya architectural artistry, our next destination reveals a site of profound personal and spiritual significance, a place where one man's journey into the afterlife became an enduring and wildly controversial mystery. Deep in the humid jungles of Chiapas, Mexico, lies the ancient Maya city of Palenque. While smaller than giants like Tikal or Capan, Palenque is often considered the most beautiful of all Maya cities, a place of elegant proportions and exquisite artistry. And standing at its heart is its greatest monument, the towering 9-step Temple of the Inscriptions. This pyramid was never just a temple. It was designed from the very beginning as a monumental tomb for one of Palenque's greatest rulers, Kainish Janab Pakal, known today as Pakal the Great. His reign, which lasted an incredible 68 years from 615 to 683 CE, was a golden age for Palenque, a period of military victory, artistic flourishing, and monumental construction. The Temple of the Inscriptions was his final, eternal resting place, and the sophistication of its construction is nothing short of genius. Unlike most pyramids which were built and then had a tomb inserted, this one was literally built upward from the burial chamber. Architects first constructed the crypt deep underground, then built the massive pyramid layer by layer on top of it, a method that ensured the vaulted chamber's perfect preservation. The journey to this chamber is a descent into the underworld itself. From the temple at the summit, a steep, corbel vaulted staircase winds its way down through the core of the pyramid. It's a long, narrow, and deliberately intimidating passage filled with a sense of awe and mystery. After carefully navigating this route, archaeologists in the 1950s, led by Alberto Roslulia, finally arrived at the burial chamber. What they found there would become one of the most spectacular discoveries in New World archaeology. The centerpiece of the chamber was an enormous, beautifully carved stone sarcophagus. Inside lay the skeletal remains of Pacal himself, adorned with a mosaic jade death mask, jade rings on every finger, and a treasure of finely crafted jade ornaments. The lid of this sarcophagus, a single massive slab of stone weighing 5 tons, was covered in an intricate and breathtaking bas-relief carving. This image would become famous around the world, but for all the wrong reasons. The carving depicts Pacal at the moment of his death, positioned in a dynamic, almost reclining pose. He is shown descending down the throat of the Maya underworld, represented by a skeletal monster. Above him grows the world tree, the sacred axis that connects the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. The tree is topped by a celestial bird, symbolizing his ultimate ascension to the status of a god. This is a classic representation of Maya death and rebirth mythology, a narrative well understood from countless other pieces of art. However, in the 1960s, this complex iconography was ripped from its cultural context and given a sensational new interpretation. Author Erich von Däniken, in his popular book Chariots of the Gods, looked at the image and saw something else entirely. He argued that Pacal was not a dying king but an ancient astronaut. He interpreted the world tree as a rocket ship with flames shooting out its base. Pacal's bent posture was that of an astronaut maneuvering a spacecraft, and the various elements around him were interpreted as control panels, oxygen tubes, and exhaust flames. This ancient astronaut theory captured the public imagination, completely ignoring the well-established symbolism of Maya art and the detailed inscriptions that tell the true story. While the lid's misinterpretation is a famous pop culture phenomenon, the true wonder of the temple lies in the inscriptions that give it its name. The walls of the temple atop the pyramid and the panels lining the staircase are covered in over 600 exquisitely carved glyphs. This is one of the longest Maya texts ever discovered, and it serves as a detailed historical record, meticulously documenting the dynastic history of Palenque, tracing the lineage of its rulers back through generations, and celebrating the life and achievements of Pacal the Great himself. It is not a cryptic message about space travel, it is a stone library, a carefully crafted piece of propaganda designed to cement the divine right of Pacal's lineage for all eternity. The engineering marvels extend beyond the grand staircase. To manage the immense weight of the pyramid above and prevent the burial chamber from collapsing, the Maya engineers constructed a unique funnel-shaped vault over the sarcophagus. Furthermore, they incorporated a sophisticated psychoduct, a small, hollow stone tube that runs from the top of the temple all the way down the staircase and terminates directly at the sarcophagus lid. This was not a ventilation shaft, its purpose was spiritual. It was believed to serve as a pathway, a conduit for the soul of the deceased king to travel between his physical remains and the world of the living, allowing him to communicate with his descendants during rituals performed in the temple above. This incredible attention to both structural integrity and spiritual function shows a level of sophistication that is far more impressive than any far-fetched alien theory. The Temple of the Inscription stands as a complete monument, a tomb, a historical archive, an engineering feat, and a sacred portal, all dedicated to ensuring a great king's journey to divinity would never be forgotten. Yet the deeply personal and spiritual journey of Pakal at Palenque represents one powerful expression of Maya royal authority, but to witness the absolute zenith of Maya political and architectural ambition, we must journey east into the dense, humid rainforests of northern Guatemala. Here, the ancient city of Tikal rose as one of the mightiest superpowers of the classic Maya world, a sprawling urban center where soaring temple pyramids pierced the jungle canopy like stone mountains. And rising above them all, both literally and symbolically, is the colossal Temple Roman IV, the single tallest structure built in the Americas before the arrival of Europeans. Commissioned by the powerful ruler Yiquen Cahokia and dedicated around the year 741, Temple Roman IV was the ultimate statement of a king at the peak of his power. To stand at its base and gaze upward is an experience that defies easy description. The temple soars to a breathtaking height of 230 feet. That's roughly the equivalent of a modern 20-story skyscraper. For over a millennium, it remained the tallest man-made structure in the entire Western Hemisphere, a testament to the breathtaking ambition of its builders. Its massive roof comb, the decorative stone latticework that topped the temple, would have been painted in vivid reds, blues, and yellows, making it a dazzling, unmistakable beacon visible for miles across the green sea of the Patane rainforest. The construction of such a giant without metal tools, beasts of burden, or the wheel is a marvel of logistics and engineering. The entire structure is built from enormous, precisely cut blocks of local limestone. Workers would have quarried the stone using harder stone tools and wooden wedges soaked in water to fracture the bedrock. These multi-ton blocks were then transported on rolling logs and hauled up increasingly steep earthen ramps using sheer human muscle and rope. The core of the pyramid is not solid stone. It's a carefully engineered mix of rubble and mortar faced with the fine limestone blocks, a method that provided stability while managing the immense weight and resource requirement. The construction would have required a vast, highly organized labor force, directed by master architects who understood advanced principles of load distribution and stability, all to create a permanent monument to their king's divine right to rule. The strategic placement of Temple Roman IV within Tikal's ceremonial landscape was no accident. It forms a crucial part of what archaeologists call the twin pyramid complexes and the broader astronomical axis of the city. But its location on the western edge of the Great Plaza served a more immediate and dramatic purpose for the ruler who built it. From the summit of Temple Roman IV, Yiquen Cahokia enjoyed an unrivaled, godlike view over his entire domain. His gaze would have passed directly over the rooftops of the North Acropolis and the Grand Plazas, looking upon the towering roof combs of Temples I, Roman II, and Roman III. This wasn't just a nice view, it was a calculated display of power. The king, standing before the doorway of the temple sanctuary at the summit, would have been visible to the crowds below during ceremonies, literally placing himself above the city and in the realm of the gods. He could survey the vast expanse of his kingdom, a constant visual reminder of his authority over the land and its people. This lofty perch also served as one of the most sophisticated astronomical observation platforms in the Maya world. The alignment of Temple Roman IV with other major temples, particularly Temple Roman III across the plaza, created precise sight lines to the horizon. Maya astronomer priests could use these fixed stone markers to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with incredible accuracy. They could determine the exact dates of solstices and equinoxes, events critical for their agricultural calendar and religious ceremonies. The ability to predict these celestial events from such a grand stage further reinforced the king's power. He wasn't just a political leader, he was the crucial intermediary between the people and the cosmos, the one who could read the will of the gods in the stars and ensure the continued order of the world. Temple Roman IV was far more than a tomb or a temple. It was the ultimate instrument of political theater, an observatory, and an enduring symbol of a civilization that dared to build its aspirations as high as the sky itself. Yet the vertiginous height of Tikal's temples reaching for the celestial realm represents one facet of Maya expression. For a deeper understanding of their intellectual world, we must now travel to a different kind of city, renowned not for its towering pyramids but for its profound artistic and scholarly achievements. Nestled in a fertile river valley in western Honduras, the site of Capon was known as the Athens of the Maya world, a center of unparalleled artistic refinement, astronomical study, and historical record-keeping. And its most magnificent and enigmatic treasure is not a temple pointing to the sky, but a staircase carved with words, the hieroglyphic stairway. This incredible structure is the longest single pre-Columbian text ever discovered in the Americas, a monumental history book carved into 63 stone steps. The staircase ascends the heart of the city's main ceremonial pyramid, and it contains over 2,000 individually carved glyphs. This is not random decoration. It is a meticulously composed narrative, a dynastic record intended to immortalize the lineage and deeds of Capon's rulers, stretching back through generations to the very foundation of their royal house. It is a stone archive, a permanent claim to legitimacy and power, designed to be read and understood for all time. The sophistication of the text goes far beyond mere genealogy. The glyphs document specific historical events, military victories, ceremonial rites, accessions to the throne, and deaths of kings. Crucially, they are anchored in the Maya's incredibly precise long-count calendar, providing exact dates for these events. This allows us to reconstruct the history of Capon with an accuracy impossible for most other ancient civilizations. We learn of the dynasty's founder, Teotihuacan, who arrived in Capon in the year 426 to establish a new line of kings. The stairway then meticulously traces the passage of power down through 16 successors, creating a continuous timeline of authority that spans over 4 centuries. This chronological precision reveals the Maya's staggering mathematical prowess. Their calendar system was more accurate than any in contemporary Europe, based on a complex interlocking of cycles. They used a base 20 numbering system which included the concept of zero, a mathematical abstractio that was centuries away from being adopted in the Western world. The dates on the stairway are calculations of immense scale, tracking time from a mythological starting point thousands of years in the past. The scribes who composed this text were not just historians, they were master mathematicians and astronomers, capable of calculating celestial cycles and projecting dates far into the future and the past with flawless accuracy. However, this magnificent record is also the source of one of Capon's most frustrating archaeological puzzles. Sometime in antiquity, long before the city was abandoned, a catastrophic event occurred. A massive section of the pyramid's core, weakened perhaps by an earthquake or structural instability, collapsed. This sent a large portion of the stairway, hundreds of its intricately carved steps, tumbling down in a chaotic jumble. Centuries later, when archaeologists began the painstaking work of reconstruction, they faced an impossible task. It was akin to trying to reassemble a giant, ancient book whose pages had been scattered, shuffled, and whose original order was completely lost. Early attempts to restore the stairway in the 19th century, though well-intentioned, only compounded the problem. Without understanding the correct order of the glyphs, workers reassembled the steps out of sequence, effectively scrambling the historical narrative and rendering vast sections of the text incomprehensible. Modern epigraphers, the scholars who decipher Maya writing, now face a monumental challenge. They possess all the words of this great history, but the sentence structure is utterly garbled. While some sections can be read based on context and comparison with other monuments at Capon, the full, flowing story of the stairway may be lost forever, a priceless historical record fractured by time and accident. This damage stands as a poignant metaphor for our relationship with the ancient Maya. We can glimpse the breathtaking depth of their knowledge, but crucial chapters of their story remain just beyond our grasp, a tantalizing and permanent mystery. But the journey from the dense inland jungles of Tikal and Capon leads us to a place of stunning contrast where the Maya world met the endless blue of the sea. Perched dramatically on a 40-foot limestone cliff overlooking the turquoise waters of the Caribbean, the walled city of Cholum presents a completely different vision of Maya civilization. This is not a city of deep, ancient history. It is a testament to adaptation, resilience, and a bold, final flourish of Maya culture in the post-classic period. And rising above it all, defining the skyline, is its most iconic structure, the Castillo. This pyramid temple fortress is a masterpiece of strategic positioning. Unlike the towering funerary pyramids of the inland classic cities, the Castillo at Cholum is more compact, more utilitarian, and built with a clear defensive purpose. It occupies the highest and most prominent point within the city's defensive walls, providing a commanding 360-degree view of the land and sea. Its very location speaks to a time of great change and rising threats. By the 13th century, when Cholum flourished, the great classic Maya cities of the interior had collapsed and power dynamics across the region were shifting. Cholum's inhabitants, likely Itza Maya, chose this easily defensible cliff-top location and fortified it with a massive stone wall on its landward sides, creating a sanctuary against the growing instability. The Castillo's design is a fascinating hybrid of form and function. It was, first and foremost, a temple dedicated to the descending god, a deity often depicted swooping down from the heavens, a common motif in the architecture of this coastal region. But its practical uses were just as vital. The structure was built in phases, with an older inner temple encased within the larger outer pyramid we see today. A central staircase climbs the western face to a small temple at the summit, where rituals would have been performed. However, the most ingenious feature is one that served sailors for centuries. A small, lower chamber within the pyramid contains a doorway that aligns perfectly with a narrow break in the offshore coral reef. It is strongly believed that the Maya would light a large torch or fire within this chamber at night. From the sea, a ship's captain could line up that beacon of light with the natural channel in the reef, providing a safe, navigable passage into the calm waters of the cove below. This transformed the Castillo from a mere temple into a functional lighthouse, one of the earliest in the Americas, guiding the lifeblood of the city trade safely to its shores. And trade was the engine of Cholum's prosperity. Its strategic position made it a critical hub in a vast maritime network that stretched along the coast from central Mexico down to Honduras. The Maya here were not isolated. They were connected cosmopolitan merchants. Canoes, some large enough to carry 20 people and a significant cargo, would have constantly plied these waters. Archaeological evidence found at Cholum includes artifacts made from materials found hundreds of miles away, copper bells and rings from West Mexico, obsidian from Guatemalan highlands, and beautiful jade from the Motagua River Valley. They traded in salt, honey, cotton textiles, and the highly prized sap of the rubber tree. The city was a bustling port, and the wealth generated from this commerce is evident in the numerous other elaborate temples and painted buildings that fill the walled precinct. The vibrant murals that once adorned Cholum's buildings, though now sadly faded, reveal a fascinating blend of cultural influences that characterized this late period. Alongside traditional Maya gods like the rain god Choc, we see clear influences from the powerful central Mexican cultures. There are depictions of deities like Tlaloc, the goggle-eyed storm god of Teotihuacan and the Aztecs, and images of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. This stylistic fusion suggests that Cholum was not just a trading post for goods, but also a crossroads for ideas where Maya traditions interacted with and incorporated the religious and artistic concepts of other Mesoamerican powers. The city represents the Maya not in decline, but in a state of dynamic evolution, adapting their ancient practices to a new, more interconnected and more dangerous world, using their wits and their strategic location to carve out a final, magnificent bastion of their culture against the rising tide of change. Yet the vibrant coastal trade of Cholum, a city intimately connected to the sea, finds a fascinating parallel far to the south on the arid northern coast of Peru. Here, in a landscape where rain almost never falls, an empire rose to power not by controlling jungle trade routes, but by mastering the desert itself. This is the realm of the Chimu, and their capital, Chan Chan, remains a breathtaking marvel, a vast metropolis constructed not from stone, but from earth, and it was the largest city in the pre-Columbian Americas. To approach Chan Chan is to witness a mirage made real. Spread across nearly 8 square miles of barren coastal plain, its ruins are a sprawling labyrinth of towering earthen walls, sunken plazas, and sprawling royal compounds. The sheer scale is almost incomprehensible. At its peak around 1400 CE, it was home to an estimated 60,000 people. But the true wonder of Chan Chan lies in its primary building material, adobe. In this rainless environment, the Chimu crafted an entire imperial capital from mud brick sun-dried in the desert air. They built on a scale that rivals the great stone cities of the Andes, proving that sophistication is not measured by the hardness of one's materials, but by the genius of their application. The heart of the city was not a single downtown, but a series of 10 immense walled enclosures called ciudadlas. These were not public spaces, they were the sprawling palace compounds of the Chimu kings, and each one functioned like a city within a city. Surrounded by walls that soared up to 30 feet high, a ciudadla was a self-contained universe for the elite. Inside, you would find royal residences, temples, ceremonial courtyards, administrative offices, and even burial platforms for the king and his entourage. The walls themselves were formidable, constructed with a trapezoidal shape that made them incredibly resistant to the earthquakes that frequently shake the region. The layout was intentionally labyrinthine, a maze of narrow corridors and single doorway passages designed to control access, confuse outsiders, and powerfully reinforce the social hierarchy that separated the divine ruler from his subjects. Walking through the ruins of a ciudadla, you are surrounded by an art gallery of dried mud. The interior walls are not plain, they are covered from top to bottom in a stunning array of intricate bas-relief designs, each one meticulously stamped into the adobe before it fully hardened. The most common motifs are a mesmerizing repetition of the natural world, endless schools of fish, soaring pelicans, stylized waves, and tiny crustaceans. This is not random decoration. For the Chimu, whose prosperity was utterly dependent on the Pacific Ocean, these images were a sacred cosmology carved into the walls of their homes. The constant, rhythmic patterns of marine life served as a permanent reminder of the source of their wealth and a symbolic invocation to the gods to ensure the continued abundance of the sea. In a land without rain, the ocean was their river, their provider, and their spiritual heart. This reliance on water demanded a level of hydraulic engineering that was nothing short of miraculous. The Chimu were the undisputed masters of water management in a desert. They constructed more than 80 miles of canals to channel life, giving water from the distant Chicama and Moch rivers to their fields and directly into the city. Within Chan Chan itself, they built an extensive network of small reservoirs or huachaks. These were not just for storage, they were sophisticated, subterranean stone-lined wells that tapped directly into the shallow groundwater table. The presence of this fresh water allowed them to cultivate gardens and small orchards right within the walls of their arid capital, creating oases of green in a world of dust, a powerful demonstration of the king's ability to harness nature itself for the comfort of the elite. The story of Chan Chan's rise is also the story of its dramatic and abrupt fall. The Chimu Empire had expanded through conquest to become a formidable state, controlling a vast stretch of the Peruvian coast. But their expansion put them on a direct collision course with the greatest power the Andes had ever seen, the Inca. Around 1470 CE, after a long and likely brutal campaign, the Inca Emperor Tupac Yupanqui finally conquered the Chimu. The Incas, in a classic strategy of imperial control, stripped Chan Chan of its wealth, looted the royal tombs of their gold and silver, and deported the most skilled Chimu artisans and goldsmiths back to their own capital, Cuzco, to work for the Inca Emperor. This conquest, combined with a major El Niño event that likely brought catastrophic rains and flooding to the vulnerable Adobe City, led to Chan Chan's rapid depopulation and decline. The city that had been built by and for the sea was ultimately undone by the climatic forces of that same ocean and the unstoppable march of a rival empire. Today, the great adobe walls stand silently under the desert sun, slowly eroding back into the earth from which they came. They remain a fragile, magnificent monument to a culture that achieved the impossible, building a glittering capital of mud in the desert and mastering the art of survival in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. But the mastery of the ocean displayed at Chan Chan represents one of the later grand flourishes of Andean civilization. To find the deep, mystical roots of this entire cultural tradition, we must journey high into the mountains, back through centuries, to a site that served as the first great unifying religious force in the Andes. Nestled in a high valley in the Peruvian Cordillera at an altitude of over 10,000 feet lies Chavin de Huanta. This was not a city of empire or a capital of conquest. It was the ancient America's first great pilgrimage center, a spiritual vortex designed to disorient, amaze, and utterly transform those who entered its underground labyrinth. The heart of Chavin is not a towering pyramid, but what lies beneath it, a complex, dark, and bewildering network of narrow stone passageways and chambers known as the galleries. This subterranean maze was the core of the entire ritual experience. Pilgrims, having traveled for weeks from distant coastal and jungle regions, would be led into this pitch-black, cramped world. The air was thin, cold, and thick with the smell of burning hallucinogenic plants and incense. The only light came from small, reflective surfaces that would cast flickering, dancing shadows on the walls. The design was intentionally confusing, a physical manifestation of disorientation, meant to separate the visitor from the rational, everyday world and prepare their mind for a profound spiritual encounter. The ultimate destination of this terrifying journey was a small, cross-shaped chamber deep in the center of the complex. And here they would come face to face with the source of Chavin's power, the Lanzan. This is not a simple statue. It is a 15-foot-tall shaft of carved white granite, shaped like a giant planting stake and driven directly into the floor and ceiling of the chamber, as if anchoring the very universe. The carving depicts a terrifying, supernatural being in exquisite detail. It has the furrowed brow and fanged mouth of a jaguar, the taloned feet of a bird of prey, and human hands that end in sharp claws. Snakes writhe from its headdress as hair. This is the central deity of the Chavin world, a master of animals, a bridge between the earthly and spiritual realms, and the focal point of an entire religious revolution. To stand before it in the flickering half-light after the harrowing journey through the galleries would have been an overwhelming, awe-inspiring experience designed to shatter a person's sense of reality. The psychological impact was amplified by another layer of genius engineering, sophisticated acoustics. The entire gallery system functions as a giant stone instrument. Researchers conducting experiments at the site have made an astonishing discovery. A conch shell trumpet, known as a pututu, when blown at a specific point in the entrance gallery, produces a sound that does not simply echo. It is amplified and distorted, reverberating through the entire underground network with a deep, roaring, animalistic quality. It doesn't sound like a shell, it sounds like the roar of a jaguar, the very creature embodied by the Lanzon god. This was not an accident. Air vents and drainage channels were strategically placed to act as sound conduits. A priest in a hidden chamber could create sounds that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves or from the mouth of the deity. The architecture itself could speak, growl, and whisper, convincing pilgrims that they were in the literal presence of a powerful, supernatural force. This multi-sensory assault was almost certainly paired with the ritual use of powerful psychoactive substances. Archaeologists have found abundant evidence at Chavin, including snuffing trays, tubes, and mortars, along with the remains of the San Pedro cactus. This cactus contains mescaline, a potent hallucinogen that induces vivid, often terrifying, visual and auditory distortions. The combination of sensory deprivation in the dark maze, the sudden, shocking encounter with the monstrous Lanzon, the disorienting acoustic effects, and the chemically altered state of consciousness would have been utterly transformative. A pilgrim would leave Teotihuacan convinced they had truly visited the underworld, spoken with gods, and been granted a new understanding of the universe. This powerful, controlled experience is what made Chavin the magnetic center of the Andes for centuries, spreading its artistic style and religious ideas across a vast area, and laying the foundational spiritual groundwork for all the complex cultures that would follow in its footsteps. From the high-altitude, subterranean mysteries of Teotihuacan, we now descend to one of the most enigmatic and expansive art galleries on Earth, a place where an entire civilization chose to draw its most profound messages not on stone or clay, but on the very skin of the desert itself. Shift your perspective from the deep mountains to the vast, flat pampas of southern Peru, to a 500-square-kilometer canvas of dark desert pavement scratched away to reveal the lighter earth beneath. Here, the Nazca culture created the most baffling and monumental drawings in the ancient world, a collection of geoglyphs so immense they can only be comprehended from the sky. The sheer diversity of the Nazca lines is staggering. They are broadly divided into two categories, each more puzzling than the last. First are the geometric forms, miles-long straight lines that run arrows straight across the landscape, immense trapezoids that stretch the length of multiple football fields, perfect triangles, and spirals that seem to swirl into the earth. These shapes display a surveying precision that seems almost supernatural over such vast distances and uneven terrain. Then there are the famed biomorphic figures, the iconic animal and plant designs that have captured the world's imagination. These include a 120-foot-long hummingbird, its beak perfectly elongated, a massive monkey with an intricately coiled tail, a towering 300-foot pelican, a spider, a whale, and perhaps the most famous of all, the so-called astronaut, a large stick figure-like being with wide, round eyes who seems to be waving from a hillside. The method of their creation reveals a sophisticated understanding of their environment. The Nazca people didn't build these lines up, they scraped them clean. The desert floor here is a unique geological formation. A layer of dark, rust-colored pebbles covers lighter, sandy soil beneath. By carefully removing the top 12 to 15 centimeters of these dark stones, the artists expose the contrasting bright layer below, creating lines that would stand out vividly. The stability of the climate is key to their preservation. With some of the driest, most windless conditions on Earth, these fragile scrapings have endured for nearly 2,000 years, untouched by erosion or the footprints of animals, left as a permanent legacy in a landscape that time forgot. The most enduring question, of course, is how could a people create art they could never hope to see in its entirety? The most accepted theory, championed by researcher Maria Reich, who dedicated her life to their study, is that the Nazca used simple but incredibly effective surveying techniques. With just wooden stakes and ropes, they could have plotted out these gigantic designs from much smaller scale models. By establishing a central axis and using a system of measured proportions, teams of workers could have executed these plans over huge areas without ever needing an aerial view. This doesn't diminish their achievement, it highlights their extraordinary mathematical and organizational skills. As for their purpose, the theories are as varied as the lines themselves. The astronomical calendar theory suggests that many of the lines point directly to celestial phenomena on the horizon, such as the rising and setting sun during solstices or the heliacal rising of important stars. These alignments could have served as a giant agricultural and ritual calendar, marking the times for planting, harvesting, and holding ceremonies. Another compelling idea is that the lines were sacred pathways walked by priests and pilgrims during rituals. The trapezoids, in particular, may have served as ceremonial plazas where offerings were made to the gods, a practice supported by the discovery of pottery shards and other votive artifacts at the ends of these shapes. Some of the more speculative theories have captured the public imagination, though they are largely dismissed by mainstream archaeology. The idea that the lines are landing strips for ancient astronauts, popularized by Erich von Däniken, fails to account for the fact that the soft, rocky desert surface would be completely unsuitable for any kind of aircraft. A more grounded, yet still profound, theory connects the lines to the most vital resource in the desert, water. The Nazca were master hydraulic engineers, constructing vast underground aqueducts called puquios to tap into subterranean water sources. Some researchers have noted that many of the lines and figures correspond directly to the paths of these underground water channels, suggesting the geoglyphs could have been a massive map of the water table or part of rituals intended to invoke the deities who controlled this precious resource. The true purpose of the Nazca lines likely wove together all these threads: astronomy, pilgrimage, water worship, and community identity. They were not a single message but a multi-layered landscape of meaning, a sacred text written on the desert floor that organized the cosmos, summoned the gods, and bound the community together through a shared, monumental endeavor. They stand as a testament to a culture that saw the desert not as an empty wasteland, but as a living, spiritual entity with which they were in constant, sacred dialogue, leaving behind a puzzle that continues to invite wonder and speculation from the sky above. Leaving behind the sprawling, earth-scratched canvas of the Nazca Desert, our journey now takes us to the arid river valleys of Peru's northern coast, where a culture emerged that was the polar opposite in its artistic expression. Where the Nazca drew vast, cryptic symbols for the gods to see from above, the Moch people built their messages upward toward the heavens in the form of colossal adobe monuments. And the greatest of them all was the Huaca del Sol, the Pyramid of the Sun, a man-made mountain of mud that was, for over 1,000 years, the single largest structure in the entire pre-Columbian Americas. To stand before the eroded remains of the Huaca del Sol today is to witness a monument of almost incomprehensible ambition. In its original glory, it rose over 130 feet high and sprawled across a base that measured nearly 1,100 by 500 feet. Conservative estimates suggest it contained well over 140 million adobe bricks. The sheer logistical effort is staggering to consider. Each brick was hand-formed from mud and straw, sun-dried, and then carried into place by a massive, organized labor force. Even more fascinating, many of these bricks bear distinctive marks, like fingerprints of the labor crews who made them. Archaeologists have identified over 100 different markings, suggesting that different communities from across the Moch realm were required to contribute a specific quota of bricks as a form of tax or tribute, a powerful testament to the centralized authority and organizational power of the Moch state. The pyramid was not just a solid pile of dirt, it was a dynamic, evolving structure. It was built in at least 8 distinct phases, with successive rulers literally encasing the older structure within a new, larger shell, each new layer expanding its footprint and height to project the increasing power and prestige of its patron. The summit would have held intricate ceremonial rooms, courtyards, and temples, all brightly painted and likely topped with a roof made of perishable materials. From this high perch, the Moch elite would have looked down upon a vast adjacent plaza, capable of holding thousands of people for public spectacles, and across to its companion structure, the Huaca de la Luna, the Pyramid of the Moon. This complex was the undeniable political and religious heart of the Moch world. But if the Huaca del Sol was a symbol of secular power, its smaller but better preserved counterpart, the Huaca de la Luna, reveals the profound and often terrifying spiritual world that underpinned that power. It is here that archaeologists uncovered some of the most dramatic and unsettling evidence of Moch ritual practice. Excavations on the terraces of the Huaca de la Luna have revealed multiple layers of plastered courtyards, and with each new construction phase, a grim ceremony took place. The old courtyard floor was ritualistically sealed beneath a new layer of clay, and embedded within this clay were the remains of sacrificed individuals. The scale of these discoveries is chilling. In one courtyard alone, dubbed Plaza 3A, excavators found the skeletons of at least 70 male individuals, ranging in age from teenagers to men in their 30s. The forensic evidence tells a story of extreme, ritualized violence. Many of the skeletons show signs of severe trauma: broken ribs, punctured vertebrae, and dislocated shoulders. Their skulls were brutally shattered, and the bones of their limbs show deep-cut marks consistent with being dismembered. Crucially, the chemical analysis of the remains indicates that these were not locals, they were warriors brought from distant valleys. The prevailing theory is that these men were captured in ritual battles, specifically staged conflicts known as tinku, designed to provide sacrificial victims for the most important Moch ceremonies. This practice was not random brutality. It was a core part of the Moch worldview, intimately connected to their most powerful deity. The walls surrounding these sacrificial courtyards are covered in breathtaking, polychrome murals that depict the same god again and again. A terrifying, fanged anthropomorphic figure now known as Ai Apik, or the Decapitator. He is often shown holding a crescent-shaped ceremonial knife, the tumi, in one hand and a severed human head in the other. The sacrifice of these captured warriors was a reenactment of a foundational mythological drama. By offering their life force and blood to Ai Apik, the Moch believed they were ensuring the balance of the world, persuading the gods to bring life-giving water from the Andes to their desert rivers and to guarantee agricultural fertility and continuity for their people. The pyramids were not just stages for power, they were literal altars where the fate of the entire culture was believed to be negotiated with the gods through the ultimate offering. This complex interplay of extreme violence and high artistry is the defining paradox of the Moch. They were simultaneously masters of metallurgy and some of the most gifted narrative artists the world has ever known. Their ceramics are not simple parts, they are hyper-realistic portrait vessels that capture the unique, individual faces of people with an almost photographic realism, complete with expressive lines, specific hairstyles, and even signs of disease. Other vessels form intricate sculptural scenes depicting everything from childbirth and medical procedures to hunting and elaborate mythological stories. In metalwork, they were unparalleled innovators, developing sophisticated techniques of electrochemical plating, soldering, and creating magnificent gold, silver, and copper ceremonial objects, helmets, and jewelry. This immense artistic output served to glorify their rituals, decorate their elites, and create the objects used in the very ceremonies that culminated on the summits of their blood-stained pyramids. The Moch present us with a civilization that could produce objects of breathtaking beauty and scenes of terrifying violence, often within the same artwork, a profound and enduring reminder that the currents of human creativity and human sacrifice have often flowed from the same deep and complex spiritual source. High in the thin, breathless air of the Bolivian Altiplano, at a staggering altitude of 12,500 feet, lie the ruins of Tiwanaku. This was the spiritual and political capital of a powerful pre-Incan empire that dominated the southern Andes for centuries. And while the site is scattered with monumental architecture, one artifact stands apart, not for its size but for its profound and cryptic symbolism: the Gate of the Sun. Carved from a single, massive block of andesite stone weighing an estimated 10 tons, this gateway is arguably the most iconic and debated relic of the ancient Andes, a frozen moment of theology and astronomy that we are still struggling to fully decipher. The gate's most striking feature is the intricate and beautifully preserved bas-relief carving that covers its entire top half. At the center stands a dominant, imposing figure, often identified as the central deity of the Tiwanaku pantheon. This being holds a vertical staff in each hand, and tears stream from its eyes. Its head is surrounded by a radiating halo of 24 rays, each ending in either a human face or a condor's head. This central figure is flanked on either side by 3 rows of smaller, winged figures, 48 in total, all shown running toward the central god in a posture of reverence or submission. For many scholars, this is a representation of Viracocha, the great creator god who features prominently in later Incan mythology. The Incas, who revered Tiwanaku as the site where the world was created, may have inherited their belief in Viracocha from this earlier culture. The entire tableau is believed to be a complex cosmogram, a visual representation of the Tiwanaku understanding of the universe, its creation, and the celestial order. This celestial connection is reinforced by the gate's precise astronomical alignments. The entire monument is positioned within the Kalasasaya, a large, rectangular ceremonial platform that functioned as a sophisticated observatory. The walls of this platform are aligned with the cardinal directions with incredible accuracy. Researchers have determined that the Gate of the Sun itself served as a calendar in stone. The 48 figures surrounding the central deity have been interpreted as markers for both solar and lunar cycles. Some theories suggest that on the morning of the September equinox, the first rays of the rising sun would shine directly through the gateway's opening, illuminating the central figure in a dramatic display of light and shadow. This ability to track the solstices and equinoxes was critical for an agricultural society, dictating the timing of planting and harvest and forming the bedrock of their ritual calendar, turning the gate from a passive monument into an active participant in the celestial dance. The very existence of the gate poses a monumental engineering puzzle that echoes the mysteries of other ancient sites. The andesite stone was quarried from the Copacabana Peninsula on the shores of Lake Titicaca, over 60 miles away. How did a culture without the wheel, without draft animals, and without modern machinery transport a single 10-ton block of stone across such a vast distance and over such challenging terrain? The most plausible theory involves a combination of immense human labor, ingenious logistics, and lake transport. Teams of workers would have likely used rollers and ropes to drag the massive stone onto a large, stable balsa wood raft. They would then have navigated across the lake, finally hauling it the final distance to the site using a system of ramps, levers, and a profound understanding of physics. This achievement speaks to a highly organized society capable of mobilizing and coordinating specialized labor for ambitious state projects. Once on site, the Tiwanaku stonemasons performed their true magic. They were masters of dry stone masonry, a technique that involves cutting and fitting stones together so perfectly that not even a razor blade can be inserted between them, all without the use of any mortar. The Gate of the Sun is a prime example of this, though it is actually less refined than the even more precise joinery found in other structures at the site, like the subterranean temple. The gate itself was likely never actually finished. The backside is rough and unadorned, and the gate seems to have been broken in antiquity, possibly during transport or after toppling from its original position. This has led to speculation that it was meant to be the centerpiece of an even grander structure that was never completed. a project abruptly halted by the sudden and still unexplained collapse of the Tiwanaku state around 1000 CE. Today, it stands alone, a magnificent and unfinished symphony in stone, its central deity forever gazing out from its high-altitude plain, guarding secrets of creation, time, and a lost empire's vanished power. Perched high in the mist-shrouded peaks of the Andes, the lost Inca city of Machu Picchu feels like a place suspended between the earth and the heavens. While the entire site is an architectural marvel of terraces and temples seemingly fused to the mountain itself, one structure stands apart for its profound spiritual and scientific purpose. This is the Teotihuacan, a granite ritual stone whose name translates to the hitching post of the sun. Far more than a simple altar, this exquisitely carved pillar represents the Inca civilization's deepest connection to the celestial cycles that govern their world, a sophisticated instrument of stone that continues to mark the passage of time with silent, unwavering accuracy. The Teotihuacan is a masterpiece of lithic art and astronomical precision. Carved seamlessly from the living bedrock of the mountain summit, it consists of a complex, multi-angled stone base from which a short, vertical pillar rises. The angles of the base and the shape of the pillar are not arbitrary. They were calculated with incredible exactitude to interact with the sun's rays at the most critical moments of the year. The four sides of the base are believed to align with the four cardinal directions, anchoring the stone to the fundamental geometry of the Inca cosmos. The pillar itself is carved with a series of subtle planes and angles, each one designed to cast a specific, meaningful shadow across the stone during the solstices and equinoxes. During these pivotal celestial events, the Teotihuacan transforms into a precise solar clock. On the June winter solstice, the shortest day of the year in the southern hemisphere, the sun is at its lowest and weakest point in the sky. The Inca priests would have gathered at the stone, anxiously watching the shadow it cast. As the sun reached its zenith, the shadow would grow to its longest possible length, a moment of profound significance. It was believed the sun was at risk of disappearing entirely, and ceremonies were held to literally tie down or hitch the sun to the stone, preventing it from abandoning the world to eternal darkness. Conversely, on the December summer solstice, the pillar would cast almost no shadow at all at noon, signifying the sun's power was at its peak and its journey across the sky was perfectly balanced. This was not mere superstition, it was a highly advanced form of practical astronomy. The Incas' entire agricultural cycle, and by extension their survival, depended on accurately predicting the changing of the seasons. By using the Teotihuacan to pinpoint the solstices, they could determine the optimal times for planting and harvesting their vital crops of potatoes and maize on the city's intricate terraces. The stone also tracked the equinoxes, the 2 days of the year when day and night are of equal length. On these dates, the shadows would fall in perfect alignment with the stone's cardinal markers, demonstrating an understanding of the sun's annual journey that was every bit as sophisticated as that of their European contemporaries. The miraculous survival of the Teotihuacan is what makes it so special. Throughout their conquest of the Inca Empire, the Spanish conquistadors, under the directive of Catholic priests, systematically sought out and destroyed these sacred stones. They considered them objects of pagan idolatry, and most were shattered to pieces. Yet the Teotihuacan at Machu Picchu remained untouched, simply because the Spanish never found the city. Hidden away on its remote mountain ridge, shrouded by cloud forest and accessible only by a treacherous Inca trail, Machu Picchu was abandoned and forgotten, escaping the destructive fate of so many other Inca sites. It was not until 1911 that Hiram Bingham brought it to the world's attention, and the Teotihuacan was revealed, a perfectly preserved window into the Incas' sacred relationship with the cosmos. Even today, the stone holds a palpable sense of power and mystery. In 2000, a tragic accident occurred when a 1,000-pound crane being used for a beer commercial filming slipped and struck the Teotihuacan, chipping off a small piece of the pillar. The event caused international outrage and was seen by many as a profound desecration. While the damage was minor, it reinforced the stone's enduring fragility and sacred status. It stands now guarded and revered as the spiritual centerpiece of Machu Picchu, a testament to a civilization that looked to the sky not just for guidance, but to maintain the very order of existence, and a poignant reminder of the ancient wisdom that was so nearly lost to history. Yet the celestial precision of the Teotihuacan, a solitary stone on a remote peak, offers a stark contrast to the raw, collective power displayed just a short distance away. If you were to walk from the main plaza of Cusco, the ancient capital of the Inca Empire, you would quickly find yourself at the base of a structure so monumental, so utterly imposing, that it seems to defy not only time but the very laws of physics. This is Sacsayhuaman, a colossal fortress temple that guards the city from the hills above, and its most famous feature is a series of 3 zigzagging walls constructed from stones so enormous that their very existence has puzzled historians and engineers for centuries. The first thing that strikes you is the sheer, unbelievable scale of the masonry. These are not mere building blocks, they are titans of limestone. The largest of them is estimated to weigh a staggering 200 tons. That's the equivalent of nearly 200 modern cars. And these giants are not isolated. They are part of a complex, interlocking puzzle of polygonal stones, all fitted together with a precision that borders on the impossible. The joints between these massive rocks are so tight, so seamlessly executed, that you cannot slip a single piece of paper between them. This precision is not just for show, it is the secret to the wall's incredible durability. The complex, jigsaw-like arrangement, with no straight lines or right angles, creates a structure that is phenomenally resistant to earthquakes. During a tremor, the stones in a conventional wall would simply pull apart and collapse. But at Sacsayhuaman, the stones in these zigzag walls are designed to literally dance together, swaying and settling back into place as the earth moves, a testament to Inca engineering genius that has withstood centuries of seismic activity. This leads to the central, enduring mystery. How did they do it? How did a culture without the wheel, without iron tools, and without draft animals like horses or oxen manage to quarry, transport, and lift these 100-ton behemoths? The quarries for the distinctive greenish diorite stone are located over 2 miles away across steep and rugged terrain. The prevailing theory involves an immense coordinated effort of human labor. Thousands of workers would have used stone hammers to fracture the bedrock and shape the blocks. To move them, they likely employed a system of log rollers, ropes made from leather and woven grasses, and enormous earthen ramps. We can imagine the scene, hundreds of people pulling in unison, chanting and coordinating their efforts, while teams feverishly placed and repositioning the rollers in front of the slowly sliding mass. It was a feat of logistics, physics, and sheer human willpower on a scale that is almost incomprehensible today. Some alternative theories, often drawing on local Andean legends, suggest the Inca may have possessed a lost technology, perhaps a plant-based liquid that could temporarily soften stone to make it malleable, allowing them to mold it into place. While there's no concrete evidence for this, the perfection of the stonework continues to fuel such speculation, adding another layer of intrigue to this already mesmerizing sight. The purpose of Sacsayhuaman is as multi-layered as its walls. The Spanish conquistadors who fought brutal battles here during the Inca Rebellion of 1536 naturally saw it as a formidable fortress, and the name is often translated as Satisfied Falcon, implying a place of defense. Its dominant hilltop position, with plunging drops on one side and the massive zigzag walls designed to force attackers into deadly choke points on the other, certainly supports a military function. However, to view it only as a fortress is to miss its deeper significance. The zigzag pattern itself is a powerful clue. In the Inca worldview, the zigzag was a potent symbol for lightning, and the god of lightning, Illapa, was one of the most important deities in their pantheon, a bringer of both life-giving rain and destructive storms. This suggests the walls held a profound religious meaning, perhaps acting as a physical invocation to the god or a symbolic representation of his power. Furthermore, the overall shape of the complex, when viewed from above, is said to resemble the head of a puma, with the city of Cusco forming the body of the sacred animal. In this light, Sacsayhuaman was not just a defensive structure, it was the sacred, symbolic head of the entire empire, a temple complex where military, political, and spiritual power were inextricably fused into one breathtaking, stone embodiment of Inca ambition and cosmological belief. And so, our journey across 2 continents and through thousands of years of history comes to a close. We've stood in the shadow of earthen pyramids that rival the great monuments of Egypt, navigated subterranean labyrinths designed to alter human consciousness, and gazed upon lines scratched into a desert floor that form a gallery only visible from the heavens. From the engineered metropolis of Cahokia to the celestial fortress of Machu Picchu, the 25 structures we've explored represent not a single monolithic story, but a breathtaking tapestry of human ingenuity, woven by hundreds of distinct cultures, each with their own unique vision of the world. What connects them across such vast distances and different epochs is a recurring testament to ambition and intellect. We see again and again a drive to build on a colossal, almost impossible scale, moving mountains of earth and stone with nothing but coordinated human will. We find a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, with structures meticulously aligned to solstice sunrises, the cycles of Venus, and the zenith passage of the sun, turning entire cities into grand astronomical instruments. And we are left with profound, lingering mysteries, purposes that shimmer just beyond our full comprehension. Were the Nazca lines a massive map for water, a celestial calendar, or pathways for gods? Why did the people of Teotihuacan bury their own temple and its sacrificial history? The questions are as monumental as the structures themselves. These sites force us to dismantle our outdated notions of primitive, ancient cultures. They were master engineers, brilliant astronomers, and profound artists. They shaped their world with a wisdom that commands our respect and a mystery that fuels our curiosity. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that history is not a simple line of progress, but a complex web of rises and falls, of knowledge gained and tragically lost. Now we turn the conversation over to you. With 25 incredible options, which of these bizarre ancient American structures captured your imagination the most? Does the terrifying, transformative power of Chavín de Huanta haunt your thoughts? Or are you drawn to the precise, shadow-casting genius of the Intihuatana stone? Perhaps the sheer logistical madness of Sacsayhuaman's walls leaves you in awe. Share your favorite in the comments below. We love reading your perspectives and diving deeper into these mysteries with our community. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more journeys into the unknown, and until next time, keep wondering.